Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me today because, well, we're going to completely transform how you prepare for complex academic lectures. If you've ever felt like keeping up with a fast-talking professor is kind of like an extreme sport, one where you totally forgot to wear knee pads, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're breaking down Lesson 58, Pre-Reading Lecture Handouts, and I promise you the strategies we uncover here are going to absolutely change your academic life. So picture this. Have you ever walked into a high-level seminar, sat down, and literally within 5 minutes felt completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of audio coming at you? You're frantically trying to scribble things down, but the professor is already, 3 slides ahead? It's a universal anxiety. Drowning in a sea of spoken information is incredibly stressful, and it usually happens because we expect our brains to instantly process highly complex, novel academic concepts live, right there in real time. But actually, there's a scientifically proven way to fix this. Okay, let's dive right into our playbook for today. We'll be looking at 5 things: the danger of going cold, the pre-reading advantage, activating your prior knowledge, conquering complex vocabulary, and finally, your pre-lecture strategy. All right, starting off with Section 1, the danger of going cold. This right here is the exact pain point so many of us experience when we show up to class without any prior preparation, mistakenly thinking we can just absorb everything on the fly. Let's contrast 2 very different student experiences. On one side, we have going cold. This basically means you're hit with massive cognitive overload. You're trying to translate new, highly technical terms live while simultaneously trying to grasp the broader, overarching concepts. It is incredibly high stress. But on the flip side, we have going warm. Because you've reviewed the pre-lecture handouts, your concepts are primed, you're anticipating the structure, and you're listening, it becomes relaxed. You aren't frantically translating, you're actually learning. Moving right along to Section 2, the pre-reading advantage. Now, what's really interesting about this is that preparing for a lecture isn't just some recommendation for extra homework. It's a critical cognitive advantage, and it's backed by hard data. Check out this massive number, 57%. According to 1992 research by Gage and Berliner, students who study models and conceptual maps before a lecture begins can recall as much as 57% more of the conceptual information than students who just don't. I mean, think about that for a second. More than half of your conceptual recall is directly tied to the work you do before the professor even opens their mouth. To understand exactly why that 57% boost happens, we really need to look at what pre-reading actually does. Gage and Berliner argue that studying these materials provides accurate and useful representations of knowledge that is needed when solving problems in some particular domain. To put that into everyday terms, studying pre-lecture handouts gives your brain a scaffolding. It builds this necessary framework in your mind so that when the live audio starts flowing, your brain knows exactly where to store all those new facts.
Which brings us to Section 3, activating your prior knowledge.
To really get those hidden cognitive mechanics of why pre-reading works so incredibly well, we have to talk about the secret ingredient here, schema. A schema is, essentially, your existing framework of prior knowledge and understanding about any specific topic. The source material highlights that simply raising your schema, literally just thinking about the topic before the lecture begins, dramatically enhances your comprehension. When you activate your schema, you're basically waking up the parts of your brain that already know a little something about the subject. It makes your brain super eager and ready to attach new information to those pre-existing cognitive hooks. And this builds directly into a very practical application: the power of prediction. Most academic contexts give you lecture titles or outlines in advance, usually on your learning management system or LMS like Moodle or Canvas. When you actually review that outline, you can predict where the lecture is heading. You identify the focus, anticipate the content, and map out the structure. Doing this significantly reduces the challenge of processing entirely new information. Why? Because you aren't guessing where the professor is going next. You already have a map of the territory. Let's jump into Section 4, conquering complex vocabulary. If there is one single thing that derails live listening faster than anything else, especially in second language or highly technical academic lectures, it is unfamiliar terminology. The source texts emphasize a really specific, practical piece of advice here. Using a good dictionary to define these terms can assist in reducing the challenge of new vocabulary. It sounds super basic, right? But if you have that lecture outline in advance, your immediate goal should be to compile a list of the key technical terms that are likely to pop up. Look them up and define them before the lecturer even steps up to the podium. So the crucial point is this:
Predefined vocabulary equals zero friction during live audio input. Think about it. If you hit a word you don't know during a live lecture, your brain stops to process it, and by the time you figure it out, the lecturer has already moved on and you've completely missed the next critical point. Knowing those words beforehand prevents you from wasting that precious mental energy. It keeps you in a state of flow, completely friction-free.
And finally, Section 5, your pre-lecture strategy. So, now that we've covered the science behind it, let's build a highly actionable daily routine for you. Here is your exact playbook for your very next class. Step 1. Log into your LMS and grab that handout, syllabus, or lecture title. Step 2. Scan the material and identify the key technical words, the jargon that looks complicated. Step 3. Use a dictionary to define those terms in advance and write them down. And Step 4. Attend the lecture and anticipate the structure. You aren't just sitting back hoping to absorb things anymore. You are actively waiting for the concepts you've already primed your brain for.
When you follow that simple 4-step process, these are the results you unlock. Your note-taking becomes drastically easier and way more accurate, simply because you aren't trying to figure out how to spell words for the very first time. You create a relaxed listening environment, lowering your stress and keeping you laser-focused. You make faster connections between concepts, and ultimately, you achieve significantly higher information retention. Doing the work before the audio begins is quite literally what makes the audio actually comprehensible.
Which brings us to our final question for today. What will you read before your next lecture begins? You now have the exact blueprint to stop just surviving your lectures and to start actually mastering them. The real question isn't whether you have the time to pre-read, it's whether you can afford the massive cognitive cost of showing up cold. It's time to take control of your learning. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and I seriously can't wait to see how you apply these strategies to your own academic journey.